It's stage 2 of the Critérium du Dauphiné, presented by American Classic, and we have a 4-man breakaway coming to the top of one of 6 climbs on the day, leading many of the contenders by 2.5 minutes.
118 miles on the stage, the longest stage of this year's Dauphiné, and one of the very few chances, maybe only 2 stages for the sprinters, assuming they can catch the breakaway, however.
And many of the top favorites starting the day within 2 minutes of the overall lead. This is the Epic Cycle Series presented by Michelob Ultra, the 65th edition of the Critérium du Dauphiné, the annual dress rehearsal for the Tour de France. Longest stage of this year's race, just under 119 miles, and I'm Steve Schlanger along with Bob Roll. Glad to have you with us for the second of 8 days of racing. And here are the standings coming into day 2. David Vellieux, after a long breakaway on day 1, leads everybody by almost 2 minutes, but most of the favorites are right there, 1:57 off the pace. Now, earlier today, we saw some crashes that highlighted a very sunny and warm day. First real significant crashes we've seen in the first 2 days of the race.
Romain Sicard there, the man in orange from Châtel. Also Louis Westra, winner of stage 1 of the Tour of California recently. He goes down hard. Both would remount and get back into the peloton.
And now we pick up the action with a 4-man breakaway leading by just inside of 2.5 minutes over the main field that contains the yellow jersey of our overall leader, David Vellieux of the Europe Car team. And riding at the front of the peloton, the Omega Pharma Quick Step team in the light blue, white, and black. That is the team of the rider who finished second yesterday in stage 1, Gianni Meersman. He's a sprinter, and today could be the only legitimate field sprint. So Omega Pharma Quick Step wants to keep this breakaway in check and not let them get too far up the road.
Omega going over the first category 2, 6 categorized climbs out on the race route. Finding the breakaway early, Thomas Damuso, to consolidate what will be his lead in the stage standings for the King of the Mountain Points.
And today's route taking the riders west, just south of Lake Geneva, away from the Alps, but through rolling terrain.
Climbs coming quick and fast throughout today's stage. 6 categorized climbs, 2 category 2s. Take note of the last climb of the day, a Cat 2, the Col de Sentier, just about 11 kilometers from the finish line. So the sprinters will have a tough job staying in the front of the peloton, especially if the attacks come furiously amongst the GC contenders in the closing miles of the bike race.
It is a fast descent from the top of the last climb all the way to a flat finish. And that is American Andrew Talansky for the second consecutive day, struggling to stay with the peloton and really feeling the effects of a stomach illness.
Well, pretty amazing that the sprinters are still in the front. We saw Johnny Meersman's second wheel to his teammate Sylvain Chavanel moments ago going over this climb, the category 2 out on the race route, and Talansky dropped when the sprinters are still in the group. Not a good sign. So Andrew Talansky still suffering from that stomach bug he picked up in the days just before the Critérium du Dauphiné.
Now, Talansky lost over 8 minutes yesterday. He's having trouble again today. He's hoping to go to his first Tour de France in just a few weeks' time. How does what we're seeing here impact those chances, Bob?
You definitely have to take note of that. If you're Jonathan Vaughters, the team manager of Garmin, you have to make sure that Andrew Talansky's in great shape. You don't want to start the Tour de France anywhere but your absolute best, the best form that you have. You can't start your first tour, especially a little bit under the weather, and expect to improve. You have to be 100% ready for the Tour to do that. So they're going to have to really take note of whether or not Andrew's ready to make his debut in the Tour de France this summer.
Some of our main Tour de France contenders are here at the Critérium du Dauphiné, and they finished together at the end of yesterday's stage 1. Chris Froome, Alberto Contador, Joaquim Rodriguez, Alejandro Valverde, and sitting just about 145 behind these riders in the 4-man breakaway. Now, their lead at one point got up over 5 minutes, but considering the fact that 3 of these riders are inside of 2 minutes off the race lead coming into the day, they haven't gotten much leash.
They have not been given any lead whatsoever, and the sprinters hoping for a chance to win a stage. Also, when a big breakaway succeeds, like David Vellieux did yesterday, it kind of re-energizes the peloton, and generally the following day they don't let the breakaway get very much time whatsoever, and that's been the case throughout today's stage so far. Quick Step hoping that Johnny Mearsman will have a chance at the stage win. He did a great ride to stay in the front. He did win the field sprint, but they were still just under 2 minutes behind the winner from the breakaway yesterday, David Villieu.
This is such a mountainous race. There are not many of the pure sprinters here, especially the ones we'll see at the Tour de France. So besides Mearsman, who are some of the other ones that might have a shot at a sprint win today?
Well, you got to look at Nasser Boigny, the FDJ rider, French team, French rider, and one of the very fastest sprinters in the game. He's got some big wins throughout the season already, including a great stage win in Paris-Nice earlier this spring. And Elia Viviani, also the Italian sprinter on the Cannondale squad. Viviani so close on a number of occasions to Mark Cavendish in the Giro recently, and bringing some good fitness from the Giro forward to the Dauphiné, presumably, if he's come out of the Giro and he's had some time to recover. This might be the only chance for Elia Viviani, Mearsman, or Nasser Boigny to win a stage in this week's racing.
Gap now down to just about a minute and a half. Now number 41 in the red and black of BMC, and that is Thor Hushovd, who was struggling yesterday. The former world champion has not been at his best for quite a while now.
It's been a long time since we've seen Thor Hushovd up in the front, and this is a type of stage that he could really do well at in his career, but the last few months it's not boded well for Thor Hushovd, former world champion, wearer of the yellow jersey in the Tour de France, and a winner of a number of stages in the Tour, but not firing so far this year for Thor Hushovd.
So we are underway with stage 2 of the Critérium du Dauphiné, and our leaders just over 20 miles from the finish. The Epic Cycle, presented by Michelob Ultra on the NBC Sports Network, is brought to you by Michelob Ultra. This is the year you stop saying this is the year. By Strava. Strava, built for cyclists. And by Giant Bicycles, the world leader in cycling technology and craftsmanship. They are flying along at the back of the field, halfway up a Category 4 climb, the Côte de Bougnon, at 2 kilometers long, averaging 6%. And some gaps opening up because it's moving so fast at the front, and that's also brought the gap to our 4 leaders down under a minute.
52 seconds to these men, but a lot of damage in the peloton now. The pace is on, chasing down the breakaway. The sprinters do not want to miss their opportunity.
Rudy Mollard of the Cofidis team in the red, attacking his other breakaway companions. Looking back to try and get a sense of if anybody's going to come with him as he races towards the top of the climb. And that red and white polka dot jersey is our King of the Mountains leader, Thomas Domasu of the Argos team, trying to protect his King of the Mountains lead, but it's slipping away right now as he's sitting at the back and not chasing.
In the breakaway yesterday was Domasu, but a little bit of fatigue in the legs perhaps dropped immediately by this acceleration by Rudy Mollard. But Domasu has gotten a lot of King of the Mountain points throughout today's stage so far, and he had some from yesterday as well. So you add all that up, he should be the King of the Mountain at the end of the day.
Still 2 more summits to go over, this one and a Cat 2 later on. But right now it's all Rudy Mollard here, a second-year pro who suffered from mono over the winter. Took a long time to recover from that. 23-year-old Frenchman now at the very front by himself. Back in the field, 40 seconds behind, Omega Pharma Quick Step continues to set the pace for their sprinter Gianni Mearsman, who was second on stage 1.
Gap coming way down now, just 39 seconds with about 18 miles left in the bike race. It's going to be very tough for the breakaway to stay away at this point. Rudy Mollard going for a little bit of glory, but don't have a strong suspicion that it's going to succeed on today's stage. And here's some of the damage at the back of the field. Andrew Talansky continuing to struggle, and his teammates perhaps send a couple of guys back. Hopefully that he can regroup and get back into the front of the group. Not a very tough stage, especially for a man with GC aspirations, but tremendous damage being done by the tempo being set by the teammates of Johnny Mearsman from the Omega squad at the front of the field.
Well, Talansky is out of the GC picture. Now he has to do the remainder of this race for form, fitness, and for other reasons.
František Rabon, the rider from the Czech Republic on the Omega squad, very strong cyclist, and Omega Pharma doing the work for their sprinter Johnny Mearsman. Has given them some stage wins, so close to a stage win yesterday, Interestingly, on the tactics yesterday, Tony Martin caught in no man's land throughout most of the stage. So it was the Omega squad not doing the chase. And that might have given David Villieu what he needed to stay away. Johnny Mearsman did win the field sprint rather handily, but it was only for second place on yesterday's stage. They want to make that right on today's stage.
Now the chalkboard giving the indication to the rider, Rudy Millard, that he is just 40 seconds ahead of the field here. So they have him well within reason and still a long way to go. So we don't have the situation we had on stage one where one rider had over 5 minutes as they came down towards the end. But today, with a couple of climbs late, some twisting, turning roads, undulating terrain, what are the chances that this field is going to produce a field sprint versus other riders counterattacking and maybe sneaking away to a win? What do you think, Bob?
Well, there's a Cat 2 not very far from the finish line. This Cat 4 has not disrupted the sprinters whatsoever. They're staying right near the front of the peloton, and a big group going over the Cat 4, second to last climb. But the one Cat 2, if anybody launches from that far out, it'll be very tough for the sprinters to stay in that group. It's a tough climb, the Col de Sentier. It does top out, and there's a long sweeping descent before the finish line. So the chances are about 50-50 for things to come back together for the sprinters or an attacking rider to go away on the last climb of the day.
Omega Pharma Quick Step at the front. The team in the lime green sitting behind. That is Cannondale. They would be riding for their Italian sprinter, Elia Viviani.
Sylvain Chavanel coming through. When he puts a hammer down at the front of the field, it's very hard for the breakaways to stay away. Great bike racer, and he's also dedicated himself on this Belgian squad to the hopes of his teammates. Quite often we've seen him leading out Tom Bonin and Johnny Mearsman on a number of occasions. One of the most successful teams in professional cycling.
So Rudy Millard dropping his breakaway mates, Jose Mendez, Thomas Damasu, and Arnaud Gerard, who have now been scooped up by the breakaway. Millard, the only rider out front of the field at this point, and stretching his advantage close to a minute now as we move under. 20 miles left to go on stage 2 of the Critérium du Dauphiné here on the NBC Sports Network. Next Sunday, the Formula One World Championships arrive in Montreal for the year's first North American race. It's the Canadian Grand Prix live next Sunday at 2 Eastern on NBC. This is our lone leader in the red for Cofidis, Rudy Millard, who has an advantage of 52 seconds over the main field right now. Millard looking for his first ever professional win. Now just over a half mile to the summit of a Category 4 climb. It's the 5th of 6 climbs here on the day. And now a Vacon Soleil rider attacking from the field. Juan Antonio Flecha.
Juan Antonio Flecha, one of the most aggressive riders in professional cycling, taking the early slopes of this Category 4 climb to try to distance himself from the peloton. Everybody swept up except Rudy Millard, the rider from Cofidis. In 2011, in the under-23 national championships, he was third in both the time trial and the road race, and impressed the selectors from Cofidis enough to put him on the squad.
And another rider from Radio Shaga Leopard also launching a move from the field, trying to go with Flecha here.
Looks like Laurent Didier, the Luxembourger, on the Radio Shack squad, trying to get across to Juan Antonio Flecha. Pace is heating up now, a lot of attacks. You can see Thomas Vogler there hovering menacingly at the front of the field, just behind the 2 men that have just broken away. But that is the steady tempo being set by Sylvain Chavanel from the Omega squad. They're hoping to keep Johnny Mearsman in contention, in contact with the lead on the last 2 climbs of the day. Just 500 meters for Rudy Millard before he gets to the next set of King of the Mountain points. His gap is holding steady there, 44 seconds advantage over the field.
This is one of 3 Category 4 climbs on the stage. 6 climbs overall, nothing more than a Cat 2, however. So it's more of a classics type stage rather than a climbing stage.
Pretty long also at 120 miles, just under. And yeah, very reminiscent of a race like Liège-Bastogne-Liège.
Crash by a Cannondale rider. Also a Sky rider in the black trying to get back on his bike. Di Marchi is the Italian rider for Cannondale who's trying to get back on. That'll slow the field down somewhat as Juan Antonio Flecha here soldiers on. The veteran at 35 years of age from Buenos Aires, Argentina. He's won a stage of the Tour de France before. And now holding off Laurent Didier of Radio Shack Leopard as another rider, it looks like, is making a move from the field down below. And this is at the very front again. Rudy Mollard, our leader for Cofidis, and his gap has come down under 40 seconds as he goes over the summit of the Cat 4 climb.
Argo Shimano, rider there, sweeping up Laurent Didier. Omega, very steady tempo, keeping the group together to give Johnny Mearsman a little bit of protection here on this climb. Category 4 climb. Mearsman riding very well, quite a versatile sprinter, very fast in the finale, but also pretty handy in the climbs. He showed that yesterday, most certainly. We had massive climbs out on the race course. Category 1, 2 Category 1s and a Category 2. He was able to make it over those, so a Category 4 climb for Johnny Mearsman shouldn't be too much trouble.
Mollard, our leader over the top of the climb. Juan Antonio Flecha, 28 seconds back as he went across. Flecha, a decade removed from becoming the first Argentinian to ever win a stage at the Tour de France, way back in 2003, and still going strong here in 2013. Now second on the road behind this man.
Vacansoleil will be dropping out of their sponsorship agreement with the team, and Vacansoleil riders have been very aggressive trying to get a new sponsor, keep their jobs, and the search is on for a sponsor for the Vacansoleil riders, and a lot of times that's just enough incentive for you to be a little bit more aggressive than perhaps you otherwise would be. Very narrow roads, this part of France in the Jura Mountains. Chip and seal pavement, pretty miserable some days to get across. When it's raining, you have a little bit more traction, but when it's sunny, it's very narrow, winding roads, and it makes it seem as if you're going about half as fast as you are when you have these rough surfaces. And they've designed these roads so that the logging trucks don't do so much damage to the tarmac, but it's very tough on a bike rider.
Yeah, yesterday it was those ski station roads that they were climbing. Today it's roads used by logging trucks, tractors, a very different type of surface. As Mollard makes that sharp turn, and now on this descent.
Incredibly small roads. It's almost the size of a bike path. Peloton, however, closing in on Rudy Mollard. He's just gone around this U-bend. One Category 2 climb, and it'll be remaining to be seen if the sprinters can stay in. The very twisting, difficult descents, heavy-duty roads, terrible pavement, and it looks like Thomas Voeckler taking no chances of getting caught behind a crash. He's right at the front of the peloton.
And he is the teammate of our race leader, David Velou, who is about 6 or 7 riders back from the front here in the yellow jersey. And by and large, it's been a good day for his Europcar team because they haven't had to do any work at the front. The sprinters teams have been controlling the pace and keeping the breakaway in check.
This is great riding by David Velou. He's sitting right where he needs to sit, staying out of trouble, following the wheels of his teammates. Solid riding by Europcar. They are fired up to defend the yellow jersey on today's stage.
One more climb to go, and our leader watching his gap come down close to 20 seconds now on stage 2. Just inside of 10 miles left to go on stage 2 of the Critérium du Dauphiné, the longest stage of this year's race, presented by American Classic, and the field just about to catch. Our leader, Rudy Mollard of the Cofidis team, the last man out there from what was a 4-man breakaway that had over 5 minutes at one point. And they still have one more climb left to go, a Category 2 that will summit with just about 7 miles left to go in the race.
Fine line between courageous and foolhardy, and Rudy Mollard just about to step on the wrong side of that line. Goodbye to the cameras, goodbye to the breakaway, but a good ride by the young man on the Cofidis squad.
So for the first time in the first 2 days of this year's race, we have everybody together here this deep into the competition. Thomas Voeckler in the green for the Europcar team, the Frenchman at the very front. He is the teammate of the man in the yellow jersey on the right-hand side there. The overall leader, David Velou. And now here at the back in the red and white polka dot jersey, the man that was in the breakaway earlier, Thomas Damaso of the Argo Shimano team, King of the Mountains leader.
Back in the front now with the Category 2 climb remaining. Let's see if he has any energy left in his legs to go for some more points at the top of the last climb of the day. Fair amount of points on offer for a Category 2 climb, but he could be excused for sitting in the peloton the rest of today's stage because he was on the attack yesterday and today. That's a lot of fatigue in the leg. Thomas Voeckler, great to see him at the front of the peloton doing some teamwork for the race leader, David Villieu. Voeckler complaining of a lack of form coming in to the Dauphiné, hoping to find some form throughout the week's racing before the Tour de France. But for Thomas Voeckler, admitting that he probably had his worst spring in his whole career after an incredible career in the Tour de France in recent years. Thomas Voeckler, one of the biggest stars of French cycling and one of the most consistent performers, but a little bit off form so far this year.
And that spring was punctuated by what happened to him in the first stage of the Tour of Belgium last week. He got a water bottle stuck in the spokes of his back wheel. Hard crash on the cobbles. Lost 15 minutes on day one. Continued in the race, however. But it's been that kind of year so far for the Frenchman.
Still a big group here. We're on the slopes of the last climb now. See how steep this is. Pretty gradual to start with. And Johnny Meersman right at the front of affairs with his teammates from Omega in the light blue. And there goes Damaso off the back. Johnny Meersman second on the stage, inherits the green jersey from our yellow jersey race leader, David Villieu. Villieu winning all of the jerseys on yesterday's stage, except the white jersey as best young rider, which he only missed by a few days. He was just a few days too old to have every jersey in the race after stage one. Chris Froome also now on the shoulder of our race leader in the yellow jersey. That's Chris Froome looking very comfortable right at the head of the affairs. On his wheel, Richie Porte, one of the best stage racers in the world. Great teammate to have.
Well, interesting to note, Chris Froome here riding for his form that he hopes will deliver him a Tour de France crown in July. And reports in the media also recently surfacing that perhaps he had it in his contract that he had to be the leader for Team Sky at the Tour this year, even though his teammate Brad Wiggins won it last year. So all of the drama surrounding Wiggins and Froome and who was going to be the leader may have been a contractual issue. We don't know if that's in fact true, but boy, the circus surrounding Team Sky continues.
We'll talk about pressure. Chris Froome, he has the physical attributes to win the Tour. That's obvious from his performance last year and his performance in stage races. But whether or not he can handle the mental pressure that comes with being the undisputed team leader for the Tour de France from the best team in the world, Team Sky, that remains to be seen.
And keep in mind, Froome has never won a Grand Tour. So he is going in with all of this pressure, the expectations, without the pedigree of having won a big 3-week race.
I'll tell you, being out with an injury as a professional bike racer does all kinds of crazy things to your mind. So for Bradley Wiggins, sitting on the sidelines, watching Chris Froome's ascension, that can't be easy either. Not an absolutely squared away ship for Team Sky so far this year.
Froome staying near the front of the field as we're coming up on the final 12 kilometers, about 7.5 miles to go. Beginning Saturday, June 29th, NBC and the NBC Sports Network invite you to celebrate a century of brutal climbs, thrilling sprints, and unparalleled triumph. It's the 100th Tour de France. Coverage begins Saturday, June 29th on the NBC Sports Network. Omega Pharma Quickstep, the team at the front of the field right now, trying to position their sprinter Johnny Meersman for a chance at today's stage win. He's in a lime green jersey, third from the front there. And he is the subject of our Michelob Ultra athlete profile. 27 years of age from the West Flanders region of Belgium. 4 wins already this year. That's double his total from a year ago.
Double stage wins in both Catalunya and Romandy. So Johnny Meersman having a very good season in the sprint so far this year.
And this is Jose Herrera Lopez of the Movistar team in the dark colors with the lime green helmet, just riding off the front. And Well, as far as Omega Pharma Quick-Step, you wonder if Gianni Mearsman will make the Tour de France team for them, because obviously their top sprinter is Mark Cavendish, who's really been on fire this year because he finally has a team totally dedicated to him. Last year he was riding for Team Sky, and obviously they had split ambitions trying to get Brad Wiggins the Tour de France victory overall, but now Cavendish has Omega Pharma Quick-Step at his disposal. So will Mearsman go as a support rider for Cavendish?
Good question. The lead-out train for Omega after some fits and starts earlier this season has begun to gel, especially at the Giro d'Italia, as we see Simon Gerrans being dropped off rather surprisingly. But Cavendish and his teammates that are doing the dedicated lead-out, the train, has been absolutely spectacular in the last few stages of the Giro d'Italia, where Cavendish was the dominant sprinter. And whether or not Gianni Mearsman would be a part of that, he's a great sprinter in his own right. And sometimes you don't really want to lead out your man. But Geert Stegmans, formerly a stage winner in the Tour de France, is now a part of Mark Cavendish's lead-out train. So it'll be very interesting to see if Gianni Mearsman can even be selected for the Tour de France. Any other team without a sprinter of the caliber of Mark Cavendish, or perhaps only Andre Greipel, and Mearsman would certainly be in the roster of the Tour de France.
Well, another rider attacking at the front. That's creating more damage here at the back. That is Nasser Bohani, the French national road champion, also a good sprinter, who is hovering near the back of the field. And the man in the red and black for BMC, Ivan Santaromita, who attacked late in yesterday's stage 1. He's also attacking here on stage 2, but he's not going to get very far before he's passed by the Cofidis rider with the yellow helmet. That is the Estonian Rein Taaramäe.
Rein Taaramäe, one of the most aggressive riders in the French peloton, on the French squad. He's had a number of storming rides in the Tour de France. They have not yet bared fruit. But on these exact same type of maneuvers, Rein Taaramäe has been able to distance himself in a number of stages of the Tour de France. And he did come up with a stage win in the Tour of Spain in his career. He's been dogged by illness throughout his career. He has great days, and then they're followed by some long periods of convalescence for Rein Taaramäe. Seems to be on good form in the Dauphiné so far, and that bodes well for his chances in the upcoming Tour de France.
A former Estonian national road and time trial champion. And this is really his MO, attacking late in stages. He goes over the summit of the final climb of the day, the Category 2. So that is 6 climbs now in the rearview mirror, and it's a long and tricky descent all the way down to the finish from here.
Nasser Bohani, a sprinter. You can see him just at the top of your screen there, being dropped by the field. But Gianni Mearsman, on the other hand, right in the front of affairs, second wheel behind his teammate Sylvain Chavanel. And there's Bohani struggling at the moment, trying to get over this king of the mountains. This is the last climb of the day. He'll need some teammates to try to bring him back to the front. Bit of a desperate struggle now for Nasser Bohani. He needs to put in a huge effort here just to catch the front of the field and have a chance at the stage win.
He goes over the summit of that climb, half a minute behind Rein Taaramäe, our leader right here, who's now flying down this descent. It'll flatten out with just about 2K left to go in the stage, but it is very tricky. Some blind bends, sharp corners. The road in certain spots isn't that well paved, so this could be quite the chase to bring him back.
In the green jersey, that's Gianni Mearsman. This is Rein Taaramäe a moment ago, having a little bit of a tricky run through that particular corner. Sylvain Chavanel still doing the tempo. Gianni Mearsman perfectly placed. Chris Froome, 5th wheel, with 6 miles to go in the bike race.
And also Alberto Contador there in the yellow-blue of Saxo Tinkoff. Joaquim Rodriguez in the white and red right behind Contador. So many of the top general classification riders are in the front 15 as well.
Very narrow, twisting road, dangerous. You could lose your chance at not just the Dauphiné here, but also the Tour de France a little bit later in the summer if you had a crash on this descent. So some of our GC contenders will not want to take any chances. Very narrow road. The bike racers invariably earn their paychecks day in and day out. It's going to be a tricky final. Rein Taaramäe making a nice little charge here. He's got a clear gap to the field. Omega Pharma has things well in hand. They've done a great job pacing Gianni Mearsman through the last 2 climbs of the day. It would be a heartbreak for that squad if this rider was able to stay away to the finish line. I think they'll try to do everything in their power to prevent that from happening.
Yesterday we saw a rider solo into the stage victory. How about Terame's chances at this point to stay clear by himself?
A little bit different scenario. He doesn't have nearly the advantage. He's gone late, and Omega is dedicated to Johnny Mearsman's chances, and they are all over the front of the field, and a very slim advantage for Terame at this point.
So it is the Estonian Rein Terame out front by himself here, with just about 5.5 miles left to go to the stage finish. But the other sprinters hungry to bring him back. Will it come down to a field sprint? We'll find out when we see the finish of stage 2 right after this. This is the 26-year-old Rein Terame, former best young rider at Paris-Nice, out front by himself on stage 2 of the Critérium du Dauphiné, and now coming down to just about the final 4 miles of racing, but only a 13-second lead on the peloton, and all of the sprinters who are trying to bring him back to try and set it up for what might be the only field sprint of this race. So they are highly motivated.
Sylvain Chavanel knows these roads well. He's won a stage in the Tour de France very near here a couple of years ago, and he is driving the field, chasing Terame, and he's putting in a pretty solid descent himself. Here is Nasser Boani off the back, struggling to get back into the field, and I think that they've realized that Boani has been dropped, so the Omega team has dropped the hammer at the front of the field, chasing this man, Terame, keeping Mearsman out of trouble and also preventing Boani from catching back up to the front, and that will eliminate one of the main competitors for Johnny Mearsman as we get towards the finish line in Oyonnax for the finish of today's stage.
Very difficult for a guy like Terame to hang on, even though you have some of these very technical bends in this descent that leads down to the finish. One of the Omega Pharma Quick Step riders, Sylvain Chavanel, right here, getting kind of a little gap to the rest of his team. That's interesting. You don't often see that, leading your top sprinter down a descent like this.
Sylvain Chavanel might want to take a look over his shoulder, see that his teammates are not quite as good descending as he is, or maybe not know these roads as intimately as Sylvain Chavanel does. Needs to sit up here, wait for his teammates. He's most certainly, I mean, unless he realizes there's a danger of Terame staying away to the finish line by himself and he's trying to bridge up, which would give Omega perhaps a better chance at winning the stage. Sylvain Chavanel is clawing his way back to Rein Terame, just 11 seconds behind our lone leader at the moment. But clear gap between himself and his teammates. He's looked back now and realized that nobody's on his wheel. We'll see if he sits up or if he continues to chase Terame down by himself.
Now, Terame so far with this gap hasn't posed a huge threat. The full field is still trying to chase him down, and they still have enough time to bring him back.
4 kilometers to go, just over 2 miles. 9 seconds. There is Sylvain Chavanel. The field will want to catch up. There he's now. He's sat up. Now he'll wait for his teammates. Not quite as good on that twisting descent. His teammates as Sylvain Chavanel, one of the most experienced riders in this bike race. Rein Terame, if these roads straighten out and flatten out, that will spell doom for his breakaway if they continue to be. Oh, and there is Chavanel right coming into the frame. It shouldn't be long before Terame is back in the fold. Chavanel waiting for his teammates now. And at the front of the field, for the first time, we see the green jerseys of the Cannondale squad. And they have another fast sprinter. So Elia Viviani must have made the split at the top of the last climb.
Really starts to flatten out with 2 kilometers left to go. But then what's really interesting, once they get inside the final kilometer, just a little over a half mile of racing, they have 2 90-degree corners back-to-back at 600 meters from the finish, both right-hand turns, so that it's going to be very tricky, especially with a full field coming in together like this. And now just a few seconds from Terame at the top of the screen to the field chasing him in the middle.
Cannondale contributing to the pace making by the Omega team. Terame just hovering right off the front. We are going to be tutto compacto, or the whole group together, tout ensemble. Here is the catch now. Cannondale to the fore. Sky also in the front, mixing it for Chris Froome, and that's just a protective maneuver. Chris Froome most certainly will not be going for a sprint stage win, but he will want to stay out of trouble in the last couple of miles of the bike race.
And no time bonuses again at the finish, so provided that nothing happens to David Veilleux, he stays on his bike within this field. He'll maintain the overall lead going ahead into stage 3 tomorrow and keeping that yellow jersey. So for Team Cannondale in the lime green, they're trying to set up sprinter Elia Viviani, the Italian. Omega Pharma Quickstep, the team that had been doing the bulk of the heavy lifting to bring back the breakaways earlier, they've disappeared from the front, but Johnny Mearsman, their top sprinter, is still there about 5 or 6 wheels from the front. Team Sky in the dark colors, just up there to try and keep team leader Chris Froome safe and out of trouble. Alberto Contador, about 10, 11 wheels from the front as well. He's doing the same thing Froome is, trying to stay safe and near the front. Doesn't want to be involved in any crashes, any splits. And Radio Shack Leopard bringing a few riders up the right-hand side of this group here with the dark colors, red and white on the team kits.
Brian Van Borg, teammates with Elia Viviani. He'll be saving his energy on the front. Maciej Bodnar doing the last few turns at the front just before the red kite. Viviani has a fast man in Brian Van Borg to do the lead out, but you got to give the advantage to Johnny Mearsman as far as lead out goes. Nicolas Mai, very fast. Sylvain Chavanel is also a very good lead out man. And we haven't seen whether or not Beauharnais has caught back up. I have a sneaking suspicion, since no FDJ riders are near the front, that he will not be involved in today's sprint, being dropped on the last climb of the day.
Tight right-hand corner. We talked about the tricky turns coming up near the finish, and these are not the typical lead-out trains for the sprinters you will see at the Tour de France. We have a mixed bag of different sprinters, one-day classic specialists, and then the other riders are mountain specialists here at the Critérium du Dauphiné, so you won't see the almost clinical lead-outs you will at the Tour. It's going to be a little more disjointed here. And now they set things up. Gianni Mearsman on the far right-hand side of the screen along the barrier, opening up the sprint, but here comes Elia Viviani in another green jersey, up the middle. He goes by Mearsman. Mearsman on his wheel, and he won't come around him. It's Elia Viviani, the Italian, getting the win on stage number 2.
Viviani following the wheel of Johnny Mearsman perfectly through the melee, made his move just at the right moment. 150 meters to go. Elia Viviani, this is a great sprint. Not even close. Great win. Viviani so close on a number of occasions recently in the Giro d'Italia to an absolutely flying Mark Cavendish, but on today's stage, Viviani not to be denied. It'll be Mearsman's second place, but that man, Viviani, great teamwork. His team saved themselves until the absolute perfect moment. They put Viviani in perfect position. He was able to come around Mearsman for an emphatic stage win. Finally, some success for this fast man from Italy.
His first win of the season. 24-year-old who had 7 victories a year ago finally gets his first win here in 2013. Former silver medalist from the Track World Championships a few years ago. So he has the speed, and he outdueled Gianni Mearsman, whose team did all of the tough work earlier in the stage to keep him up front, to bring back the breakaways, and Viviani enjoys the spoils of their efforts. And now Beauharnais's group coming in, losing some time here, dropped on the fast descent, and never a factor in the sprint.
Beauharnais unable to match the tempo on the last climb of the day. Missed opportunity for Beauharnais. He might only have one more chance for a stage win in the Dauphiné this year, and that will be tomorrow. 2 Category 3s on tomorrow's race course. Saving himself perhaps and pulling the pin on that last climb. and he will perhaps be the freshest of the sprinters on tomorrow's stage. But on today's stage, not able to contest a sprint, and Elia Viviani taking maybe the only, but certainly one of only 2 chances for the sprinters in the Dauphiné this year.
The 24-year-old Italian, Elia Viviani, gets the win over Gianni Meersman and Tony Galopin, the rider from Radio Shack Leopard, who finishes 3rd. And David Veilleux will keep the yellow jersey as overall race leader. He finished in the pack, so he'll maintain the lead going ahead into stage 3 as well. And we will hear from our leader, David Veilleux, as we continue. But today belongs to Elia Viviani. The Italian sprints to a win on stage 2 of the Critérium du Dauphiné. The Epic Cycle, presented by Michelob Ultra on the NBC Sports Network, is brought to you by Competitive Cyclist, your source for pro-caliber bicycles, apparel, and accessories. Fuel your passion at competitivecyclist.com. And by Strava. Strava, built for cyclists. And by American Classic. Like us on Facebook and see more from the leader in tubeless wheel technology. And here is our competitive cyclist ride of the day. The winner, Elia Viviani, sprinting ahead of Gianni Meersman.
No doubt about the fastest man at the end of today's stage. Elia Viviani following a great lead out by his teammates. Gianni Meersman unable to match the speed of Viviani. Great stage win by Viviani, his first on the year, rather surprisingly.
He's won a couple of stages at the USA Pro Challenge in Colorado in his career. But first win of this season. It's been close a few times, had 7 wins a year ago, so a sigh of relief to finally get one in the month of June.
Ran up against an absolutely storming Mark Cavendish during the Giro d'Italia. Viviani centered his season around the Giro, did not come up with a stage win, but he's happy to have one here at the Dauphiné.
Our overall standings remain the same at the top 2 days in. David Veilleux, our overall leader. Chris Froome among the top GC favorites for the race, staying on the same time as he finished stage 1, 1:57 back. Alberto Contador on the same time as well. American Andrew Talansky, however, losing more time today, dropped 8 minutes yesterday, doubled that today, now over 17 minutes off the pace. And David Veilleux, courtesy of that long breakaway on stage 1, will maintain the yellow jersey and the overall race lead for a second day.
Rather luxurious ride for Veilleux, the race leader. His teammates didn't have to do too much work to control the field. The sprinters teams did most of that, following the wheels. Great teamwork also by his team captain, Thomas Vogler. So Veilleux, another day in yellow.
And after the podium, let's see what our leader has to say.
The day was a tough one, very fast one. The team was riding a lot for you, but you had some help from Omega Pharma Quickstep. How did that day go?
Yeah, it went perfect for us. I mean, our guys kept the gap in a good time, and then we brought it back to like 2 minutes, and then it was up for the sprinters to take care of it. Quickstep did a very fast tempo of the downhills, but I was really well placed with my teammates, so it wasn't too bad for us. It was good.
Not too hard on the legs after yesterday's big effort?
Yeah, a little bit. I felt the legs were tired, but I guess in the coming days it's going to come back better.
I suppose the goal is to keep the jersey for as long as possible, at least until Wednesday, the time trial?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the time trial, I'll do my best and I see how things go. And after that, it's another race. But we'll go one day after the other.
It's a special year for Canada. Parisien winning a stage in Spain. You here, Canadian cycling is becoming pretty big.
Yeah, exactly. And then with Châtel and the Giro last year. So no, I guess we have really strong riders. We just need time to come to Europe and get used to it. And I think we can be a very strong nation.
Bob, what do you think about his chances of holding it now on stage 3 tomorrow?
Generally, stage 3, not a problem. The time trial would theoretically be a problem, but he's got a 2-minute advantage. Watch for him to be in the yellow jersey all the way until Alpe d'Huez on Saturday.
Third day of racing tomorrow, 12 a.m. Eastern of the Critérium du Dauphiné on the NBC Sports Network. And as always, you can check out more at our website, nbcsports.com. And now for Bob Roll, I'm Steve Schlanger. Thanks for joining us as Elia Viviani gets the win on Stage 2 at the Critérium du Dauphiné.